Historic Resources Commission meeting. As it is now 6 p.m., we will go ahead and call to order the June 16th, 2022 meeting. Do you want to, Avery and Lynn, want to give the preliminary rundown?
Yes, thank you. This is Avery Kerner, planning staff, and I have a few housekeeping items to address for tonight's meeting. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast live on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. During the meeting, please remember to mute yourself when you are not speaking. Unless you are participating during the meeting, please also turn your video off. This allows the active meeting participants to be seen on screen. When you are participating, please turn your video on. We also ask that everyone state their name each time before they speak to ensure that everyone is able to follow along. With that, I'll turn the meeting back over to the chair.
Thank you. This is Chair Meyer again. We will go ahead and take roll call tonight to see who is present. Commissioner Irby looks like is not present yet. Commissioner Johnson.
Present.
Commissioner Ezell.
Here.
Commissioner Klein.
Present.
Commissioner Coleman.
Present.
Commissioner Hawley.
Present.
Great. And obviously Commissioner Meyer is present. We will take up the first item on the agenda, which is communications. Lynn, have we received communications from other commissions, the State Historic Preservation Officer, or the general public?
Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Historic Resources Administrative. You did receive one communication for this meeting, and that has been placed with the agenda item for the meeting.
Thank you. This is Chair Meyer again. Is there any disclosure of ex parte communications by commissioners this evening? Seeing none. Are there any declaration of abstentions for specific agenda items by commissioners this evening? Okay, seeing none. Do we have any committee reports this evening?
Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. We do have an Architectural Review Committee meeting that met about a project that was on your agenda last month. It was a really good meeting, and I'll let Jay, if he would like, report on that meeting.
Yeah, and Lynn, you might have newer information than me, but me and Stan and Lynn met with the client and worked through some options, and I think it was a very productive meeting where they brought potential solutions, and they are coming back, I believe, in 2 weeks. Is that correct, Lynn? Or a month and a half, right? Because they have a vacation.
Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. Yes, they will be on the July agenda.
This is Chair Meyer. Great. Glad we were able to make some progress there. All right. We will move on to our consent agenda this evening. And under the consent agenda, we have the action summaries from our January, March, April meetings, May meeting. And then we also have administrative approvals, asking you to confirm the attached design review applications that have already been administratively reviewed and approved by staff. It's actually my understanding we can vote on all of that, all of the consent agenda at one time versus taking it at piecemeal. If anyone has any objections to that. But I would ask, is there any public comment on these items and then under the consent agenda that we know of?
This is Avery Kerner, planning staff. I don't see anybody on Zoom wishing to speak on these items, and nobody is present in the chambers to provide comment.
Okay. This is Chair Meyer again. Is there any discussion by commissioners on anything on the consent agenda? Looks like everyone is definitively saying that there is no discussion. I will make a motion that we approve the consent agenda in its entirety, the action summaries and the administrative approvals.
Seconds.
Great. So there's been a motion and a second. I'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ezell?
Commissioner Ezell, aye.
Commissioner Klein?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Commissioner Coleman, aye.
Commissioner Hawley?
Commissioner Hawley, aye.
Commissioner Myers and I, so that motion carries 6-0. We will then move on to just general public comment. Do we have any general public comment this evening?
This is Avery Kerner, planning staff. No, we do not have any public comment.
This is Chair Meyer again. We will then move on to public hearing items. We only have one public hearing item tonight, which is DR 21-111, 623 Massachusetts Street.
Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. This is a design review application for an addition to the property located at 623 Massachusetts Street. It's a certificate of appropriateness review because the property is located in the environs of the J.B. Shane, Juno Bell Shane Thompson Photography Studio. The property is also located in the Downtown Urban Conservation Overlay District and subject to the Downtown Design Guidelines. The applicant has constructed an open-air, except when enclosed with windscreens, patio with roof structure that is connected to the structure located at 623 Massachusetts Street. The patio structure has a shed standing seam metal roof, metal post, and square unpainted wood columns supporting the structure. The patio is approximately 768 square feet, with the roof structure covering the entire patio area. Standard 9 and the design criteria in Chapter 22 apply. The Downtown Design Guidelines also apply. This is showing a view from the sidewalk looking back toward the building that's currently Black Stag Brewery, showing the structure that's built in front of the brewery. There was a sidewalk dining, actually it was patio dining that was approved for this location, and the new addition is the roof structure that you see in the photograph, and it's actually attached to the building. So for building code purposes, this became an addition and not a freestanding patio structure. And that's why you see it before you this evening. This is showing from the street view, if you can see it in the background beyond the tree. And then looking to the south, to the north, and can see it under the Black Stag sign. This is an existing addition, and it does not meet many of the applicable design guidelines and standards. However, staff is of the opinion that this is a unique circumstance due to this property has a setback for the building face from what is normally the front building line along Massachusetts Street. And if you noticed in your staff report, there was originally a garage here, and the island with the gas station pumps was in front, which is why this building does not come up to that lot line on the east side. So it is a very unique situation, and staff is recommending approval for the certificate of appropriateness, as it does not damage or destroy or encroach on the environs of the Shane Thompson studio. And it also, this is a photograph showing when the area is enclosed. And staff is also recommending approval for the Downtown Design Guidelines. But if the commission approves a project for the Downtown Design Guidelines that doesn't meet the guidelines, then they must state why they are approving the project that doesn't meet the guidelines, the letter of the guidelines. So staff is recommending that you find that the subject property development pattern is not typical for the Downtown Urban Conservation Overlay District, that extenuating circumstances exist for this project, such as the building placement on the lot and the type of patio addition, and approve the downtown design guidelines review. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions you might have.
This is Chair Meyer again. I don't believe the applicant is present. Is he?
Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. The applicant is present.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not used to anybody being in person if someone is in person. I can't see anybody on the line. All right. Does the applicant wish to say anything?
Hello, I'm Kevin Edwards, general contractor. I wasn't involved in the construction, but I am involved in the permitting process and getting this right with the city. The last photograph showed a plastic enclosure, which is something that is not currently on there and would not be replaced until doing a review with the fire department. I think they had some issues with that, but that's not something that's currently up, and that's not something that we'll put back up until we get necessary approval for it. That's the only comment I have at this moment.
This is Chair Meyer. I had a question about the commercial building permit application that was done on in January 20th of 2021, which just said the project overall was temporary. I mean, obviously it's not intended to be temporary anymore. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, this is Chair Meyer again. Thank you. Oh, Jeannie, do you have a question?
I had a general question since I'm a new person on the commission. I was curious to know how the Historic Resource Commission has handled structures in the past that were built first and then sought permission for a permit. Because that's the situation it seems that we're dealing with here.
This is Chair Meyer again. Well, we've certainly had that issue in the past. And quite frankly, it at times strikes us as it's better to ask forgiveness than permission about that. And I'll be frank, I don't remember off the top of my head specifically. Sometimes I think that we have denied it and then it gets appealed to the city commission. Lynn, do you recall off the top of your head?
Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. You have had both where the commission was able to approve the project because it met the standards. And then you have had a couple of projects that did not meet the standards and the applicant appealed to the city commission for approval.
This is Chair Meyer again. Go ahead.
Commissioner Klein, I'm just concerned about setting precedents. Do you know what I mean? I understand that there's a lot of situations that are on a case-by-case basis, but I would hope that businesses, especially downtown, would not take this as an example of, building whatever they like without permission, and instead that they seek permits from the Historic Resource Commission. Thank you.
This is Chair Meyer again. I'm going to go ahead at the moment and ask if there's any public comment.
This is Avery Kerner, planning staff. There is no one present to provide public comment on this item.
This is Chair Meyer. We do have an email included in the packet. I guess we should say that part from Alex Kerr. So since there is no public comment, then we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. But
I'm sorry, Chair. This is Avery Kerner, planning staff. We actually do have a member of the public present who would like to speak on this item.
Okay, this is Chair Meyer. Go ahead.
I'm John Hampton. I'm the owner of Black Stag Brewery. And I do realize it was a unique situation with building the structure. We built it right after COVID was announced and during the shutdown, when the only dining that was allowed was in the outside area of restaurants. So our situation was also unique, and it wasn't our intention to circumvent city policy. The thought behind it was, by the time that the approval process would have happened, and down the road on into months later that the financial loss would have shut the business down. That's all I have to say.
This is Chair Meyer. I guess, Mr. Hampton, I had a question. Are you talking about when you got the building permit, or when you went ahead with the additional construction onto the building itself?
The construction of the awning that goes over the patio, it was in the middle of winter. It was extremely cold that winter, and we did use the plastic in that first winter to allow guests to sit outside so that we could remain open. It wasn't practical to have the business open without the allowance of the outdoor space. We did get a couple of parking spaces, I believe, when the parking space, I forget what the program was called, but the parklets, I believe is what they're called, that still remain on Massachusetts Street. We didn't want to use that since we did have space already available on our own property.
Yeah, okay. My question though is about not your initial construction application, but the addition that we're here about on tonight. And my question is, did you not think you needed a building permit?
No, we knew that we needed a permit. That process was going to happen, which is why we're here today.
Okay, and I hope I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but are you an attorney?
I'm not.
Okay, so you knew there was going to need to be a building permit, but you didn't get it because you wanted to proceed faster? I'm just trying to understand.
I was trying to keep my business open, and without outdoor enclosed space, that wasn't going to be able to happen.
Okay, this is Chair Meyer. I don't have any other questions for.
I have a question, Commissioner Klein, for the owner. How long did it take to build the patio? You know, from the time you had to acquire materials and then building it and completing it, what was the approximate time period?
We got involved that now it's completed. I believe it was between 3.5, 4 weeks.
So I have again similar question, similar to Chair Meyer, about why, if you knew that that building, the patio, needed a building permit, I'm curious to know why you didn't apply for a permit, even as you were purchasing materials for the building, if it only took about a month to build it.
We applied for the permit during the process of the construction. I spoke with Lee Queen about it prior to the project being finished.
This is Commissioner Hawley. Lynn, a question. Looking at the file, it does look like, and I can't speak to when the construction began, but that the permit was submitted in January of 2021. So what was the delay for HRC process? Or is it only because it's becoming permanent now, or asked to be permanent?
Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. I believe that date is incorrect, Commissioner Hawley. I would have to go back and check. I know. I believe that's an incorrect date on that permit application.
Excuse me, this is Kevin Edwards again. I got involved as a general contractor when the city contacted John about needing to have a general contractor to complete the permit process. This permit application, I believe the date is correct, but that permit application was submitted after the project had already been completed. So that project had been completed already by the time of that initial permit application.
Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. I know there is some permit history on this project. I can try to track that down for you if you would like me to. The construction took place, then the building permit was submitted. The drawings were insufficient, and there had to be a licensed contractor involved. And that's when, I'm sorry, what's your name? Kevin became involved with the project. And that's also when it got slated for design review.
Look.
This is Avery Kerner, planning staff. It looks like Commissioner Johnson wishes to speak.
I'm sorry. This is Chair Meyer. Yeah, please go ahead. I was looking at the packet. Sorry.
It kind of sounds like to me that this was built like the parklets that are with the other businesses. They didn't have to use a parking space because they had the space due to the setback. And the thing is that all of those parklets were done during COVID to allow businesses to be able to have open air dining and that kind of thing, so that businesses could stay open. But those were temporary. And there's a bunch of those all along Massachusetts Street that I'm assuming, and it sounds like that's kind of working its way through what to do with all of these temporary structures and things like that. So with this, I can understand how it looks from a temporary basis, but now that it's being proposed to be permanent, it seems like that the higher downtown design guidelines and the historic preservation guidelines kick in, and it doesn't meet those. I don't understand how this building is unusual or different. I mean, I understand that it is set back, but everything else that has been done downtown where there is some sort of setback or something like that, you're still using the same sort of materials, brick or limestone or faux wrought iron. Just across the street, the old Lawrence Journal World building has that little bit that's set back, but what's along the sidewalk are brick pillars and what looks like wrought iron. And then further down the block there along the Eldridge, that vacant lot there has the brick pillars and everything. And so it just seems like that this was okay temporarily, but now that we're talking about a permanent structure, it needs to follow the guidelines of using the similar materials. And where the roof of the patio overhang, it comes in underneath, and I'm not going to get my terminology correct, but the bit of limestone across, it's underneath there, and it doesn't match up like every other awning or even metal roof overhang lines up with the header there. And so that doesn't line up. The materials aren't the right materials. I'm sure if the applicant would have come in and talked to staff about, hey, we're wanting to make this permanent, it wouldn't look like this. It would have looked more like what has been done permanently with the little sidewalk cafes and things, and the tables with awnings and things like that have been done elsewhere. And I know that this block of Massachusetts Street, a lot of those facades were redone, but they were redone in a way that met the design guidelines. So I think that in that spirit, even though this is set back, it should still meet the same guidelines that those buildings were redone to when those were done. So, I mean, I'm inclined to ask the applicant to go back to the drawing board and come up with a permanent structure that actually meets the design guidelines for downtown. So those are my thoughts.
May I respond to some of those thoughts, please?
This is Chair Meyer. Yes, you may.
Okay, this is Kevin Edwards, general contractor. Once again, we were told by planning and zoning that a temporary structure would not be allowed under any circumstance, at which point the structure was attached to the building, which was when it was characterized as a building addition. The project was never intended to bypass any design requirements, and to my understanding, it is not in conflict with any design requirements. The materials are, appropriate in terms of matching, older materials, things that would match this historic context of the downtown area. But there are an awful lot of rules involved, and having a temporary structure was not an option. And having this go through the process and only as a building option was the one option for this to move forward. And if anybody has any suggestions, we'd love to hear them and comply with any of your concerns. But we have gone back to the drawing board. This process is going back to the drawing board. I mean, that's what's taking place here. So.
Well, and I think I just made a couple of suggestions about brick and wrought iron and the canvas awnings that I would have. I mean, there's some suggestions.
This is Chair Meyer. I guess I'm a little surprised by your comments, just because Lawrence has always had standards and guidelines, particularly for downtown. And so, and I'm not trying to characterize any certain way. I mean, it sort of sounds like it just sounds too complicated to deal with. I mean, that's why we're protecting downtown. I think the goal of a lot of our historic preservation is protecting downtown because that's very important. And I'm a little bit confused by some of the comments, because there was conversation earlier about how you knew you needed a building permit, but just went ahead anyway without the building permit. And maybe I'm missing something about that. But I mean, in my mind, knowing you need a building permit and proceeding without it makes it, I mean, that's really not my issue. If somebody proceeds without a building permit and then just wants to get approval of it later. I mean, the project as it is, have you read did you see the staff report by Ms. Zollner regarding this?
Are you speaking to John, or are you speaking to Kevin?
Sorry, Kevin, I'm talking to you right at this moment. Did you or John?
I was not involved in any of the construction. I am only involved in getting this to be approved by the city and facilitating that process. I did not participate in the construction. I did not construct this addition. I am just a qualified professional to aid in facilitating both sides coming to a reasonable solution for this issue. I know the rules. I don't.
All right, this is Chair Meyer again, and I'm not speaking directly to you when I'm about to say this, Kevin, but I mean, as Ms. Zollner notes in the staff report, the existing addition does not comply with many of our applicable standards and guidelines. So it's not like it's just one minor guideline that it's not in, that it's not working with. So I think there's a number of issues, and the question becomes, how does this get unwound now that it's built? Because I'm certain nobody's going to want to redo it or have the cost of redoing that. So I'll bring it back to the commission for other commissioners to discuss if they wish.
Commissioner Coleman, I have a couple clarifying questions, I suppose. Because I'm new to the commission, are we reviewing the parklets or the patio structures that are being allowed in the parking spaces just generally? Are we reviewing those?
Lynn Braddock Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. Those were not reviewed. They were under a temporary ordinance. There is a process ongoing right now for the city to have a new ordinance for those parklet designs, and part of that will be reviewed by the Historic Resources Commission or usually it'll be an administrative review based on the new design standards that will have to be appropriate materials for the downtown district.
Thank you, Lynn. Commissioner Coleman again. The other question then is about the statement that the city staff told the previous contractor, that a temporary structure was not allowed. I don't understand that, because they are allowed in the parking spaces, and this is in a parking space. So I don't understand why it wouldn't be allowed here. And
Lynn Braddock Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. I think this one was different because of the way it attaches to the building. It became under building code defined as a building addition rather than a standalone parklet structure.
thank you. So that, to me, that means that if it were not attached to the building, which it wouldn't have to be, it could be a freestanding structure, then it would be considered the same as the other parklet structures, which the city is trying to write an ordinance for and a design review process of. Is that fair?
Lynn Braddock Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. I believe it had to do with the way the structure was already constructed when it came to the building permit for review. And I do believe it was the plans examiner for the city that said this had to be considered as an addition and not a freestanding structure.
This is Chair Meyer again. Commissioner Klein, sorry, I see you have your hand up.
Again, I have similar questions to Commissioner Coleman. It sounds like we're talking about semantics in a way, because if a city staff member told the contractor that it had to be called an addition to the building, then why did the city staff, whoever that person was, why did they not refer the project to this commission to make sure it was covering the downtown guidelines?
Lynn Braddock Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. As soon as it was determined that it had to be a building addition, it was forwarded to staff to put place on a Historic Resources Commission agenda. We did not have all the information that we needed to proceed with placing it on an agenda for you, and that's why there's been a lag in time. We've been waiting for information from the applicant.
This is Chair Meyer. I want to circle back around a minute. So basically, what the staff report is asking is that we take two actions, which is to issue a certificate of appropriateness for the project in accordance with Chapter 22, and then secondarily find that make a special finding that this subject property development pattern is not typical for the Downtown Urban Conservation Overlay District, and that extenuating circumstances exist for this project. So that's the two things that we're being asked to do tonight. And I'll just say from my perspective that I do not believe that extenuating circumstances exist. So I am inclined myself to not move to approve the project. But if somebody else wants to make a motion in that regard, they certainly can. We'll have two motions if there's a motion to move forward with it.
I would like to make one last comment. Kevin Edwards, General Contractor. This is the very first step in the approval process and getting inspections from building safety, the fire department, and all of the building and safety staff. nobody else, no other department in the city will move forward on this until this portion of the project is approved. So you can do whatever you feel is right, but no further inspections. This whole process is ground to a halt with this committee and this process that we're engaged in right now. So just be aware of that, and let's think about other people being allowed to do their thing too. Thank you.
This is Chair Meyer. We'll bring it back to discussion. Or is there another comment that wants to be made?
Yeah, I do have a comment. It's John Hampton, a business owner. The special circumstances that we fell under during the time is that the entire city had just shut down because of COVID. And we were going to be able to reopen with outdoor seating only at that period of time, which businesses that didn't have the opportunity to have outdoor seating, many of those businesses are shut down now. A lot of those businesses might have had one or two tables outside. I can list off a couple of different ones that opened around that time that are no longer in business, who all their life savings and everything is gone. We had a special situation in that we are building this, and it was intended to be temporary in the beginning. The city told us it couldn't be temporary, that it had to be a permanent structure. So we built it according to that. The structure is way overbuilt in that it has welded steel supports. It has laminated roof structures. The steel surface of the roof is the same steel surfaces on many awnings downtown, the same color. It is at a higher gauge. The day after that project was complete, we got 4 inches of snow, wet snow, and it held up as it was supposed to. It has an engineering certificate, stamped engineering certificate. It is lagged into the ground, is very sturdy. We are very much willing to compromise and take in any visual type changes. We're happy to consider and work with the city on that. But the extenuating circumstances was the pandemic, and that it is on private property, and we're not taking up any parking spaces or putting something that might look shabby out on the street just because of the circumstance. We tried to do the best we could, given the situation that we were placed in, and considerable amount of money was spent to make it look as best as we could, understanding that there were probably going to be some recommendations by this committee to make it look better.
Mr. Chair Meyer, thank you.
This is planning staff, Avery Kerner with planning staff. It looks like Commissioner Johnson would like to speak.
Oh, sorry. I don't have everybody in my window, I guess. This is Chair Meyer again. Go ahead, Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Johnson. I think that there are some things to the existing structure that could be done so that it fits in better and meets the design guidelines for downtown. Some things, particularly with instead of the wood along the bottom brick, and instead of the bare wood, either doing something to where it is the same color as the limestone. So, but I don't think that we are at this meeting to, as some people might say, let's make a deal. It wouldn't be appropriate to design it in 30 minutes at a meeting like this. And so if there is, in the past, we've asked the Architectural Review Committee to work with an applicant, and perhaps that's something that we could do. But the way it stands now, I wouldn't be able to vote to say that it meets a certificate of appropriateness, or that it falls under an unusual circumstance. So for me, I wouldn't be able to approve it tonight, but I did go down and I walked downtown and I looked at other patterns downtown, and thinking of the design guidelines, I could see where it could be improved, but I wouldn't want to try to design it tonight.
This is Chair Meyer. I wouldn't mind an objection or a suggestion or a motion to send it to ARC. I mean, that's a possibility.
Make a comment.
Let them know that the thing that she doesn't like isn't what we're discussing.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment on that.
I'm sorry, this is Chair Meyer. The commission is having a discussion right now.
Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. Just to clarify, the wood railroad tie or cross ties that you see at the bottom that have been painted black were part of the originally approved outdoor dining patio, and the structure just covers those. It did not change the material or any of the layout of those timbers.
Well, this is Commissioner Johnson. Then what? Either this is an addition to the building or it's not. Is it just the roof being stuck on, tied into the building, making this an addition and nothing else? It's just the roof?
Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. Yes, it's just the roof that makes this an addition, tying in to the building that makes this addition to the structure.
Then my next question is, this is Commissioner Johnson, would the rest of the structure, like the railroad ties, that would come back to us eventually in the future when the city has new guidelines for the temporary structures?
Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. No, it would not come back to you because it's on private property and not part of the parklet program.
But it's a structure in the conservation district. And how is that not, how is that not something that is reviewable under design guidelines?
Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. It is reviewable, and that is what you're reviewing this evening, is this building addition.
But not the railroad ties.
Correct, not the railroad ties, just the roof structure that makes it a building addition.
Why, this is Commissioner Johnson, why can't we review the railroad ties?
Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. If you want to look at the entire thing as a building addition, then that would be something that you could work with the applicant on if they were interested in changing that building material, or just review the project as it is this evening.
This is Chair Meyer. I guess my question is the applicant have any interest in working with the Architectural Review Committee?
Yes, this is John Hampton, a business owner. Just a clarification on the perimeter wooden fence, I guess, lack of a better term to use for it. They're not railroad ties, for one thing. They're cedar structural timbers that were approved before the business opened. That was brought before this committee. The change that we made to it is it used to be just the raw timber look, and the conclusion from that meeting was that it was to be painted black, and that was already brought before the department and approved 3 years ago. The fence that goes around the patio has been there for 3 years and was part of the original design review process and approved. What we're working with here is the awning that covers that provides protection from the elements underneath basically 2/3, 3/4 of that patio. I wasn't coming prepared to discuss something that had already been approved. I'm very prepared to talk about the awning and its support structure. The fact that it was built, not attached, but the city required it to be attached, which then, brings us down the rabbit hole to where we are right now. And I'm very, very happy and very willing to, discuss what we need to accomplish to move forward.
This is Chair Meyer. I guess I'd like to ask the members of the Architectural Review Committee if you see any benefit to sending it there. I guess that's the other thing. I mean, I realize the applicant is, but I'm not on the Architectural Review Committee, so I'll leave that to you to discuss.
This is John Hampton again, the business owner. My understanding was, and I don't have the paperwork with me, but my understanding was that it had already been through architectural review.
This is Chair Meyer again. Well, yeah, we're talking about what to do with this evening in terms of the issues that are raised in the staff report.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Hawley. Chair Meyer, I do think, my opinion is that I do think this could benefit from discussion at the Architectural Review Committee. It's in the backstory of that the cedar being approved makes total sense to me at a glance. It fits in. I do think as this becomes an addition, it changes the nature of it, where that addition as a whole is now encapsulating what was formerly a fence and is now a bigger move. Picking up on some of the comments Commissioner Johnson made, I do think there could be some potential options. I know the applicant might not love it, but potentially if you, even as simple as moving the structure up or bridging so that lintel is not exposed, where it sticks out, might be easy moves. Having eaten hamburgers under this patio, I agree that it's a good amenity, and I want it to stay there. But I do think that if it was started from scratch as a building addition, there would have been changes made if it went the normal review process that might make it look a little different than this while the same in spirit. So I think talking through it at the ARC would be, I'd certainly support such a motion.
This is Chair Meyer. Any other committee comments? Or a motion of some kind? I would entertain that.
Well, this is Commissioner Johnson. I would move that we forward this to the ARC for them to take a look at the structure.
Commissioner Coleman, second.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson has made a motion and Commissioner Coleman has made a second. So we'll go ahead and take a roll call vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Commissioner Johnson, yes.
Commissioner Ezell?
Commissioner Ezell, aye.
Commissioner Klein?
Nay.
Commissioner Coleman?
Commissioner Coleman, aye.
Commissioner Hawley?
Commissioner Hawley, aye.
And Commissioner Meyer is an aye. So that motion carries 5-1. Lynn, do you want to just explain for a minute about the Architectural Review Committee scheduling?
The next Architectural Review Committee is the first Thursday of July. We usually try to work out that time with the committee members and with you so that we can get a schedule that works for everyone. And then that would place you back on the July HRC agenda, which is the third Thursday in July.
This is Chair Meyer again. Thank you, Lynn. All right. This project will then go to the Architectural Review Committee and hopefully see you at the July meeting. We will now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is miscellaneous items. Do we have any miscellaneous items this evening?
Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. We actually have two miscellaneous items. The first is welcoming Commissioner Coleman and asking the commission to appoint her to the Architectural Review Committee.
This is Chair Meyer. Welcome, Commissioner Coleman. And I certainly would believe we should appoint her to the Architectural Review Committee. So,
Commissioner Klein moves that we approve the appointment of Commissioner Joy Coleman to the Architectural Review Committee.
This is Chair Meyer. Does that require an actual vote? I can't even remember.
Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. In the past, you have taken a vote on this.
Okay. All right. Well, I will second that. So there's been a motion by Commissioner Klein and a second by Commissioner Meyer. So we'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Commissioner Johnson, yes.
Commissioner Ezell?
Commissioner Ezell, aye.
Commissioner Klein?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Commissioner Coleman, aye. I mean, do I vote
Okay.
myself? I don't
Yes, you can. You certainly can. Commissioner Hawley?
Commissioner Hawley, aye.
And Commissioner Myers and I, so that motion carries 6-0. Congratulations.
Welcome.
Just in time.
Thank you.
And then the other miscellaneous item from staff is that your July meeting will be a hybrid meeting. That means you can attend the meeting in person in the City Commission room, or you can choose to participate via Zoom. We will send out, when we send out the quorum call when the agenda is published, we will ask you to respond and let us know if you will be participating in person or via Zoom so that we have the ability to arrange for that setup to take place. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Chair Meyer, I don't have any, and it doesn't look like anybody else does either. Maybe my question is, how long is the agenda right now for July?
Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. I believe you'll have two items on the agenda.
Okay. All right. Well, we have no more miscellaneous items then. So I will move that we adjourn for the evening and see you all in some fashion in July. Thank you.
Thank you.